in today's video a non-traditional Will It Run. We have the 1974 Mini Cooper Innocente. I've been working on it the past couple of days and I found some things out that will help in getting it to run. But first, we're going to turn the key. And I thought it was going to start. Well, that's interesting. Let's pull the choke out. Maybe it will be a traditional Will It Run video. Let's try that again. Aha, there it goes. Now, will it run? Yes, it'll run. Welcome to Challenge to Build. So as you just saw in the intro to the video, definitely not your traditional, 20-minute episode of Will It Run. I wanted to cut right to the chase, tell everybody, what everybody already expected. It does run. In the last video, I kind of talked about there being a fuel problem. And while I think there was a fuel issue, it wasn't actually with the fuel pump. I didn't even have to make any jumpers to jump the fuel pump to get power to it. What I ended up doing was to find out if it had fuel coming up to the carburetor. I pulled off the main fuel line here going to the carburetor, put it in a bottle, and simply just turned the key. And while there was power to the fuel pump, the fuel coming out of the fuel hose was kind of low. So I let it run for a minute or two, and as I was letting it run, I feel as though there was a clog somewhere in the main fuel line, whether that was at the fuel pickup, the fuel filter, or somewhere in the line, because the owner, and don't mind some of these loose wires, I still have to come in here and tidy up some of the wires, but when I went to go see the car initially, the owner talked about being able to drive the car one time and it kind of dying. So when I went there to go diagnose the problem initially, I kind of feel like it might have been out of gas, actually. As simple as that is to say, the fuel gauge on this car does work. And when I was there, I couldn't hear the fuel pump run because it was still under pressure. It has a little electric pump in the back, and you can see the fuel gauge right up here. And right now there's only probably like a gallon or two of gas in there because the gas tank is right in the trunk of the car, which is right here. So I want to say that's probably only like a 6 or 7 gallon tag. Unfortunately, or 6 or 7 gallon tank. The tag is kind of worn down, so I don't exactly know. If you own a Mini like this, drop a comment. Let me know how many gallon gas tank it has in it, so this way here I know how much to put in. All that to say, I think the car ran out of gas. And in doing so, when in the past experience, when you run your fuel pump and your tank empty, when you go to fill it back up, you kind of stir up all the contents in the tank. So I really think the either fuel line, fuel filter, or possibly something in the carburetor was clogged because I drained and let the fuel line pump out some fuel, hooked it back up, cycled the key a couple times, made new pressure in the carburetor, and went and started it up, and I was pretty surprised that the car fired right up. To go along with the fuel issue, I did come over here and kind of unplug and replug the wires, thinking maybe something was loose. I did find the vacuum line. There was a vacuum line kind of tucked up under here, and which in turn goes to the vacuum advanced for the distributor. Now I know that really won't help in starting it and making it run, but it will make it run better as the RPMs climb. So that was something simple that I fixed. And As far as wiring goes, coming back here to the battery, I found another ground wire. So this ground wire here was tucked up in this main harness, and it was kind of tucked up under here. So initially when I hooked up the battery, I did positive, negative, and this was not in the picture. So just kind of poking around, I found it, hooked it up, and again, not saying that that was the fix to the fuel issue, but grounding is extremely important. So between fuel and possibly grounding for spark, this may have had something to do with it, but I did hook that up, and in doing both of those simple little things, the car did fire up, and as you saw in the video, it runs pretty good, and I should be able to do the same thing. It has a manual choke, so you manually choke it. I can barely fit. And 2 pumps. And she comes to life pretty easily. And it runs pretty good, actually. I think a tune-up would be beneficial. The temperature gauge needs some attention. It does not come up to, it comes up to temperature, but the gauge does not register, so I gotta look at the wiring for that. Everything else, volts, the oil pressure is really good, and tachometer, and of course the fuel gauge. And then I gotta adjust the choke cable, because pushing it in doesn't make it go down to idle. So you gotta come out and manually drop it down. So that's going to need some adjustment along with the fuel or the gas cable, the throttle cable. It's all JB welded right here. So that is kind of the project status as of right now. I really think it needs a turbo sitting over here. The exhaust note kind of has a weird little putt to it. See if I can get somebody to come in and rev it up for you. I'll get my lovely little assistant to come in and help. But it's a cute little thing. One other thing that I did while it's been up on jack stands is I flushed out the old brake fluid. I like to set up bottles at each corner, and you can see some of the brake fluid in there. I like to gravity bleed while I do other work in the garage. I've been gravity bleeding for quite some time, but I think everybody takes for granted brake fluid. So obviously here's some new DOT-free brake fluid, and here is what I was flushing out of it. So I think there's a little bit of an improvement there. Go ahead and hop in the car real quick for me. I'll even open the door for you. Go ahead and rev it up for everybody. It's not quite warmed up yet. Let's see what kind of temperature we got first. Nice little tip, if your temperature gauge doesn't work, grab yourself a digital. You can kind of keep an eye on different things as you're letting it run if you're unsure. People also use these to check and make sure the exhaust temp or cylinder temp is the same, to make sure everything is running as it should, to check misfires. I also have to, I'm not going to pop it off now, but I want to flush the coolant still. We still will do a tune-up, and now that it's been sitting up here, the oil leak hasn't really gotten any worse, but it is showing more signs of an oil leak, so I want to diagnose that and try to fix that as well. Wiring is still a really big issue. I need to come in here, tie up all the loose wires, finish hooking up the ground, and then figure out why the interior light and the wipers aren't working. I hooked this up and then blew a fuse, so I'm thinking something might be hooked up backwards. All right, miss. Go ahead and lay into it and see what it sounds like. Do it again. Yeah. Still warming up a little bit. Remember what I told you about the tachometer yesterday? Ease up into like the 3,000 to 4,000 range, and then rev it one time up to the 5 to 6 range. Clean her out a little bit. You can see that it's smoking a little bit. It hasn't run for a while, so go ahead, babe. Do it again. And there you go. So the Mini Cooper is alive. Can I get a smile and wave? There we go. And that is kind of the extent of where the project is at. I need to talk to the owner and see if we can maybe get a turbo on it. The thing sounds pretty cool. I think it needs a little blow-off valve. That's my best impression. You can roast me in the comments, but that's going to do it for me and Challenge to Build in the Cooper.
It's the horn.
Yeah, see if it works. And wow, it's got a pretty aggressive horn. So that's how we're going to wrap it up tonight. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Get out there and go challenge your build and have some fun. Go ahead and hit it one more time. That's what I'm talking about. See ya.